We are, yes, we are live. Hi, guys. We are here with Sally Curtis, founder of award-winning Monetize Your Content and best known for turning books into 2 years worth of bite-sized content that extends their brand essence. That's amazing. She creates reusable assets that amplify visibility, build authority, and deepen audience connection. This is fascinating. So, Sally, do you mind sharing a story behind creating Monetize Your Content? Like what inspired you to do it and all
Yeah,
that?
yeah, absolutely. There's a bit of a backstory. So I would really like to say that it was because I was exceptionally clever and I was very strategic, but that would be BS, and it couldn't be further from the truth. So my role to where I've got to now in my life, in a lot of ways, has been incredibly serendipitous, is the word that I use. And if I speak specifically to our journey as to how I've got to monetize your content, the brand that we are now and my personal brand, it's been made up of a number of stories. And I always list them as the two for God's sakes moments. Could this be a thing? And then the blinding obvious. So if I can, I'll share those stories
Yes,
with you because it
please
sort of
do.
builds on where my genius has evolved and why I do what I do, because it's been reflected back at me, and serendipitously I've been able to work with it from there. So it goes back over 20 years, and I back then I was known as the bums on seats girl. So that just simply means that I used to help experts, the gurus at the front of the room for business and life, that used to fill their business events. I used to help them put bums on seats to their events. So I was like your joint
Wow.
venture person, your business development person. I would network my networks and help them fill their room and leverage their networks, etc. So come from a business development background where we put 1,000 people in a room for my experts, and I did that for a number of years. Then when you're learning from the greats, you sort of absorb it and you learn all of the different tips. And so I ended up at the front of the room and then started filling my own events and did that very successfully, and sort of kept getting asked, how are you doing that, how are you doing that? So build a community and helped up and coming speakers fill their rooms and understand business development and marketing. And then as a result of being in that arena, I found myself in the professional speaking arena, where we're taught in that space as thought leaders. You need to write a book every year, you need e-newsers going out every week, and you need articles going out every month, content. So I started to see a lot of my speaker buddies fatigued and frustrated. So there was a bit of a double up there. But if I just back very slightly, and I'm going to join these two dots, when I was doing filling my own events, etc., it was one of my mentors at the time said to me, "For God's sake, Sally, you've got enough content for 6 books." Now, I thought he was absolutely mad, because I still didn't feel like at that point that I had a voice, let alone any intellectual property that was, of value. But, when you've got great people around you, magic happens. And I listened instead of rebelled. So there's a little point there. I like to rebel a lot, but I did listen at this point. And we turned a 45-minute presentation, that it was a video presentation, and the little workbook or training manual into 2 books. So I did become an author, which was very exciting. And then I did nothing. And it was, so that there's a thread there too. And then it was, the 8 years later, after I'd been through this process, that I started to see these speaker buddies fatigued and frustrated. And I did for God's sakes, give me your book. And because I can see everyone else's inner genius, and I've got the thread of seeing the individual and, seeing the bits that can be pulled out, etc., I did take their book and I did turn it into what I now know was bite-sized content for them, and, gave it back to them so they had things to post on social media so they weren't getting as fatigued and frustrated. And then a little bit later, I sort of started to think to myself, because I kept getting asked, could you do my book? Could you do my book? And I started to go, could this actually be a thing? Could I build something around this? And I'd had that thought and, done nothing with it. And then along came a cold connection that had been referred to me. So a cold client, Robin, and he gave me his new book and 3 hours worth of interviews that he'd done about the book. So it was all book related. And I went through and did my thing, and we created 375 assets for him. Right, wow. And it was him that said, oh my God, that's woohoo, that's 2 years worth of content and strategy done. And I heard that that's 2 years worth of something or other done, and my little brain went, oh, it is a thing. So that was how we became best known for turning books into 2 years worth of graphic content, because somebody said it in the right way, that my little brain heard it and I was able to seize it, which was gold. And then we'd been doing that for a number of years, and my title was Content Repurposing Whiz, which was cute but confusing. So I've been frustrated. What are we going to call ourselves? How do we describe this? Branding nightmare 101. And it was a mentor of mine, marketing mentor and person I was having a conversation, and he just said to me, don't you just help people monetize their content? And that was the blinding obvious moment, because that was absolutely what we were doing, but I had not joined those dots. So I very cheekily tell that story, because all of those, pinnacle lessons were lessons that were given to me by other people who had fresh eyes and could see what I couldn't see because I was in it. And that's my gift, is I can see what other people's inner genius is, because when you've written a book and you're creating your content, you can't see all of the golden moments that I know your audience is going to want, because we can't read our label when we sit inside our jar. So it's a great story of, really being, I've lived exactly what I do now. So that gives you some context.
Yes, and it's so true. Every time, and because I'm a creator as well, so every time I create, I don't know, an annual report, a magazine, or any type of layout, there are so many details that I would see if that was to be done by somebody else. That if somebody else created that, I would see so many flaws. But once you're just so much in it,
you don't see it. Yeah,
you need somebody else to have. Yeah.
yeah.
And there was a little something else that you mentioned. I'll come back to this. What was it? You said there was something else in the story that you're like, I'll come back to this.
That was the joining of the dots of the two for God's sakes moment, because somebody said for God's sakes for me, and I turned my content, and then I started saying for God's sakes and turning their content. So the two stories of that is, the first step was somebody helped me repurpose my content and turn it the reverse way into a book. And then I've got to the point where I take people's books and turn it that way. So had somebody not helped me do the book scenario, I would not have seen the opportunity to turn it into bite size. Now, why I was able to see it at that point is after working with all of those experts that I did for many years. They were really easy to work with, and their rooms were really easy to fill, because as experts, they actually provided me with bite-sized content pieces that I could share with my community or utilize in joint venture arrangements. I don't even think they were called bite-sized. I don't even think we had a name for them then. But because somebody had provided me with what made buying easy, I just duplicated that all the way through. Again, I'd like to say I was clever, but I have just mirrored off experts and just been able to join the dots and put them in the right order and take it from there.
Well, the dots, you'll be able to read the dots. That's clever.
Yeah.
You gotta give yourself some credit too.
Correct.
Yes, but what challenges did you face while building this business? Were there any?
God, yeah. Everyone knows the roller coaster ride of an entrepreneur that does this. Definitely had lots of those. And I think, and my life is very reflective, that as we grow and evolve and change and grow up, our business and our lives do the same thing. So for me, when I started doing the book maximizing, and which became the, monetize your content, and the transition phase in there, which was the, content repurposing whiz, I still had a coaching practice. So I was still coaching people, I was still speaking, and then I was doing this on the side. So there's always that continual problem of growth. You're growing two things at once, and then you grow really rapidly, and then all of a sudden you realize that your systems aren't supporting the rapid growth, and you sort of drop back a little bit, and then you've got to build out the systems and move forward again. So there's always that. There is a roller coaster ride that goes like that, but there's also that back and forth. And I sort of mentioned before that I'm a bit of a rebel, and I like fast-paced stuff. I talk quick, I do stuff quick. And so that backwards and forwards is sort of like really irritating. And I did not like that, and I would get really frustrated with that and disrespectful of that as it related to that, to myself and my growth. But I think the more I've leaned into the understanding and the flow, because it is a flow, I've been able to appreciate it and move with it. And as a result, not resist it. I think that's the difference between force and resistance versus flow and just moving and leaning into things. I think that's been my I'm laughing already, and I haven't even said it. That's been my lesson, which still continues, and the word that comes to mind is patience. Not very patient. I like things done quick. So there's that patience of self and the flow. For me, it's been my greatest that continued lesson.
Well, but being successful takes that type of personality that you have. You have to be fast. You have to act quickly. It's kind of an oxymoron. Like it's
Yeah.
really. But that's I love it. But if you could turn any fictional book into a bite-sized content series, which one would you choose and why?
Oh, that's a good one. The one that's automatically coming up for me, and it's not a book I've actually read, but I've obviously watched the movies. I'm a really big movie buff. Would be the Alice in Wonderland type, and probably the Cinderella. So I like the typical Jerry Bruckheimer type movies where there's lots of lessons and people are coming together in the unity. But from a book, if we go back to the book, it would be the Alice in Wonderland, because to me that's a journey. It's a self journey. There's interactions that occur. There's lessons to pick up if you're ready to pick that lesson up at that point and take it with you. So I think for me that that particular book and all of the different ways it can be interpreted would make a really great bite-sized content theme. So when we're doing books, we look for example, we look for the visual campaign or the visual storylines. What are the topic, the 5 topics or the clusters within a book, and we'll create the campaign threads from there. And there would be amazing threads that you could create with the Alice in Wonderland book.
Yes. And do you have a team of, all that people that write, people that do graphic design, people that, so that's okay.
Yeah,
I bet that
definitely.
would be really fun for them to do. Alice
Yeah,
in Wonderland.
and they do get really excited when we get a new book and we understand what the key words and the key themes for the book is based on what we're wanting to achieve from a goals perspective for the client. That's sort of the deep dive, because that's the discovery and the adventure is finding the right emotive imagery that help to tell that story visually, so it actually leads somebody. So when we're crafting that out, that's the most exciting part for us, because not only do we need to tell the story from the client's perspective, but we need the readers to be able to see themselves in that story. And we also need to be an extension of our authors or our experts' content. It needs to be an extension of them, because if somebody looks at it and goes, "Oh, that's not them," or has that hinky feeling, then it's not doing its job.
Yes, that is true. What is the most surprising thing you've learned about content monetization that you wish you knew when you started?
That the image positions the viewer.
Interesting.
So the image positions the viewer. To explain that, and this was where I learnt it from. And again, we were just playing around with images, and then and then when you played around with it and you can actually see it, I was able to see the lesson. So again, this was a serendipitous moment. Again, I was working with a client who had a phrase which was assess, don't guess. And they were specialising as an expert in wearable technology, going back quite a while. So you wear the technology to understand your heart rate and all those sorts of things. And the particular product that she had was suitable for 3 different types of avatars. It was suitable for fitness people, so sports related, high achieving athletes. It was very relevant to nursing homes and aged care facilities, so they could monitor their patients differently. And it was also very relevant for high performing CEOs, executives, etc. in the corporate world. So 3 incredibly different avatars and client bases. So how do you, create bite-sized content that's going to support that message, but also help the right people find the right piece of content? that all comes down to the choice of imagery. So if you've got nurses and elderly people, then the nurses and elderly people see the reflection of themselves in that piece of content. The corporate executives see themselves, and then of course the athletes see them. And if I explain it this way, if you're looking to buy a red car and you haven't got it yet, within those weeks of you deciding to buy a red car, we all know the red car story. You see nothing but red cars, right?
Yes.
But nobody
So
does
true.
that in content. And it was working with that client and knowing that story because of being in the coaching industry for so many years and the personal development for so many years. We talk about the red car or the yellow car or don't look for something red in the room and then you can see all the red things in the room. We know the way the brain works like that, but we weren't utilizing imagery to position the viewer. And so I remember realizing that, and then sort of, because I'm an Apple fan and love Nike because they use emotive imagery, I could then see that lesson helped me see what they were doing. So we've been able to bring a lot of those strategies into the business because of positioning the viewer.
Do you guys, I want to know how that process is. How do you get your clients? And then after you get the client, you sit down with the team and how do you guys brainstorm and
Yeah.
what is
It's
that? Yeah.
It is actually incredibly simple when you put it into a process of what we're doing. So when we work with clients, I do the strategy session, so to speak, or the discovery session. What are you wanting to achieve with the book? Are we using it to get more clients into a workshop? Do you just need more visibility? Do you want to tell a particular story? What's your quest? All of our authors, regardless of the type of author they are on, have some form of quest, either a very personable quest, a family-related quest, as we've spoken about before, or they've got a quest that they want to get this wisdom out to a certain type of audience. So they're on a quest of some form. So we need to know what their quest is, and we need to know what their timelines are as it relates to, is it date relevant? Are they launching something in a particular date? Are they selling into something at a particular date? So we go very strategic. That's my role. And then we need, and through the conversations I have, like the conversations we're having, I get to see, what they're passionate about. They'll say certain things that they like or they dislike. So I get to see their essence in motion, so to speak, in a video form like this. And I ask them what they do and don't like, etc., and we get a feel for it. Then when I look at the book actually has the key. So if you look at a book, it's got a front cover. The front cover's got a title. The title will have a key word in it, e.g. leadership, for example. If we go very specific, it'll be, the 10 ways to do something in leadership or whatever. And then when you turn into the next page, you've got a contents page, which is the structure, which is all of the different visual campaigns that we can create. And there'll be key words or key topics within that book, within that frame. And so the book holds the key is the first thing for us. Then when we've got a really good understanding of what the client's overarching theme is, the essence of who they are, what they stand for, how they serve their audience, what their legacy is that they're wanting to leave with the world, and we've gone through and had a look at the book to see what are the repeating themes and the nags that they have, or the rant moments that they have. We highlight that and say as a team and talk about the essence of the person, their quest, etc. Then I brief my team, but I don't put a lot of framework to the briefing. We call it, I let the team from a creating the design perspective go wild, because in my role, we all have biases of, I like things that way, and the client said that they like things that way, and I don't like polka dots, so don't you dare ever put a polka dot on it. But a client might like polka dots, for example. There's all those sorts of things. So I let my team interpret and go wild as it relates to creating the design templates, the bases of the designs of what we're going to create with the bite-sized content. We then get the client to review that, and philosophy is love it or hate it. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Again, I don't want to create biases there, so I will ask the client, is it a love it or a hate it? If I get I'm not sure, that's a no. So it's either a hell yes or it's a no, that's out, or it's a hell yes to that bit in the top corner, but I don't like the rest of it. So we know which bits we can then start mixing and matching. So that's stage one, the template design. The second stage is finding the visual elements, and that involves, what are the key words within the book. So if we think of leadership again as something that's a broad, easy to understand topic, leadership often has communication. It often has teams in it. It often has, understanding or focus, whatever the key words are. We'll then start to look for words that are representative of the client's key words, but also representative of the client's avatar. Are they 40? Are they 50? Are they male? Are they female? Are they different nationalities? What is the specificity of the avatar that they're supporting? And what is the transformation that you're promising? And then we need to work out what does it look like when they're stuck? And what does the transformation look like? So we can show them the visual transformation journey that they have. So we look for all of the imagery that is reflective of the emotions and the aspirations and those sorts of things. The image selection is a big, 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 big deep dive, and then the elements that go with that to support that become part of that. And then, of course, there's the extraction process, which is extracting all of the client's inner genius content, the one-liners, the teachable moments, etc., that we're going to then place on those tiles. So there's a 3-step process. We check in with the client all the way along, and then we go into that delivery mode where we deliver, the 100, 300 assets or whatever for the client, based on the visual campaigns that we've mapped out and created.
300, how long would that take? Months or?
No, so if we're looking for 300 assets, it's usually anywhere from usually around a 2-month to 3-month process. A book on average, most people want 100 assets to start with a book, and that's a 6-week process for us. So that's where that speed comes in. Speed to market's a good thing. And because we run a production line agency, we've got teams that work on certain things and we pass it along. That's where we're able to create that speed, but at a very, very high quality and caliber of content.
And I know I have a friend, guys. She's Sally's client. She's all the way in Canada and Sally's in Australia. So if you're in any country, anywhere in the world, you can hire her. And she's so happy. She spoke very highly. The content looks impeccable. Are there like packages? What would be the pricing? Is that something you'd like to?
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy to do that. So we have two packages just to keep it nice and easy. The one is super simple, the book maximizer. So you bring us a book and we can turn that into generally around 100 assets, is usually the benchmark, and I'll talk to the asset numbers in a minute. And that in Australian dollars is $29.50, and in US dollars that equates to about $1,900 US dollars, and that gives you 100 assets, and usually in 6 weeks. So that's the book maximizer. So that's why we've become best known for that, because it's a really good process, and we take a select number of clients each month to be able to work on that so we can deliver high quality content. And then for those that are more ambitious, that have got lots of content and are fatigued and frustrated and have gone, I can't get my VA to do this, can you do it for me? In other words, they've got bucket loads of content, podcasts, speaking gigs, books, articles, whatever, and they just sort of don't know what to do with it. We've then got the Monetize Your Content package, which is around a 7-month retainer. And then we do all of our setup and systems, and everyone ends up with the systems and the game plans, etc. as well. And we work with the client over a 7-month period to create all of their long form content into bite-sized content in whatever form that is. So tiles, static videos, speaking gigs, podcast snippets, audios, etc., even lead magnets and those sorts of things. And that ranges in delivery between 300 and 600 assets. So that's where your sort of 2 years plus comes in. And that's depending on the volume amount is around $2,000 to $3,000. And that's where we then sort of tailor it based on what the clients are needing. So the 2 packages to make it really easy for people.
I wish, I can actually I will share your link so then people can actually go in there and see the quality and Yes, for that type of quality, the amount of, wow, of content, very, wow, the pricing, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
You can't beat that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What's one common misconception about bite-sized content that you encounter, and how do you debunk that?
Yeah. I think the biggest one, and I phrase it this way, is not all content's good content. One of the biggest things our partners, because I work with strategic partners, encounter, particularly in the thought leader and the speaker space, is I've got my virtual assistant, she does that. And yes, they can. And I absolutely agree. There's some absolutely fantastic specialist virtual assistants that can do a really good job of creating content for people. But if you're really looking to really monetize and really utilize the content, the existing content that you've got with somebody that understands strategic business growth and knows how to fill events and that storyline theme and bringing it, all of the campaigns in line, I think that's where we really specialize. So not all content is good content. Yes, you can create content that you're posting all the time, but if you're looking for that, I call it strategic content, even though we don't potentially do the promotional pieces, because most people have a marketing team that'll do the promotions and the Facebook ads and all those sorts of things. We're that really good, high quality consistency piece that keeps your message on, but keeps your message tight, which keeps your audience coming back for more because it's logically educating them and moving them down that funnel. So that's where the myth I would bust is not all content's good content. Yes, you can create great content by repurposing bits and pieces, but understanding that strategic choreography of how to build those pieces into something that moves them down and down a funnel or through a funnel is really where we specialize. Yeah.
And regarding the not all content is good content, I see a lot of, there's a lot of debate on that. A lot of people are saying, oh, you should just post regardless, even if it's not good, just splash, just throw it all on there. And some people are saying, no, I'd rather just put quality over quantity. I'd rather just post once or twice a week, keep it simple but concise and good looking. So where is the truth? Like, what is the truth here?
Yeah, I think the truth lies in your community and you understanding your community. So we're about to take that shift. We're moving from us personally, from an everyday posting to two times a week. Now, for us in our community, with the advent of AI, this is why I talk about not all content's good content. Everybody is excited and justifiably about AI and all the possibilities. But if you're in content and you're in that thought leadership space and the wisdom space and the shared knowledge and creating legacy, you can see the patterns as humans, not even as experts in the area. As humans, we're already starting to see the patterns of AI. Oh, yeah, AI created that. Oh, yeah, AI created that. So we're starting to feel that hinky feeling and we want that real human connection again. And that's where I think there's going to be a difference. Now, we all use AI in different ways, and we don't use it a lot in the business for what we create, but we use it for our processes. Absolutely. And I think that's where, from a know your community well perspective, if your community is starting to switch off and engagement across the board is dropped because there's just even more content out there, because we've been able to get more content out there because AI has helped to speed that up. The people that are looking to you, often you don't even know they're there. We've all had those clients that have said to us, oh, I've been following you for 2 years. Timing's right. Can I work with you now? But we don't even know who they are because they've never commented. They've just been in the background. And that's that philosophy that we have. If you're easy to consume, you're inevitable to buy. And that timeline is not our timeline, that's the client's timeline when they're ready. And that the content that we put out, if they're sort of doing they're leaning away from it, then it's not working. But if they're leaning into it and they're still consuming it, then that's where I think people are looking for that better quality piece. And I say it this way, if you are easy to consume when your client looks for your content even on their worst day. So if someone's having the worst day ever and they still drop in and consume something of your content and are inspired and have forward movement, then you've really impacted them. AI can't do that. humans do that.
Yes.
That's what
I
people are looking
love that
for.
answer. Yeah, that's brilliant. And what about the fatigue? Do you ever get burned out? I just did the rebrand for my job, for the government job. And then I'm also creating other projects, doing all kinds of creative stuff. And I just feel so burned out. How do you stay creative and inspired when developing new content strategies for your
Yeah.
clients?
I do struggle, and I'm going to say guilty as charged. I've actually burnt out twice and got
Mm.
close again recently because of overgiving and loving what I do. So burnout for me is something I have to be incredibly conscious about as a human. It's not always easy for me to do because I get so excited when something new comes along, and I meet new people and it's a whole new discovery and my energies just rise and I'm able to keep going. That ability to keep going is also an Achilles heel for me. So for us, that's where we're, from a restructuring perspective, as I talked about, we're reducing the type of content we're putting out. We're just doing it twice a week. For me, I love doing podcasts. Podcasts now have become my favorite thing. Before, I used to do lots of webinars and teaching in people's communities, and I really love doing that. But if I be really selfish from a monetizing my own business perspective, the webinars and those sorts of things are great. But the clients that I work with or the audiences I'm serving often aren't quite ready for me. So my timelines of converting in that process is a longer time, which is where podcasts, because they've got the longevity, creates a different opportunity for me. And this, for me, this was my realization last year after being in what I'm going to call hustle mode, where you doing lots of stuff and you're high energy all the time, because it's not about the work that we're doing, it's the high energy level that we're maintaining for those longs when we're on, because I imagine you're an on person as well. So for me, it was looking at the communities of people that we're in, and we spoke about this when we were off camera about the collective and the significant people that are coming together that I'm seeing of my network that are a community of legacy leavers, that are a community of different make. And within those, there's a few select people that are publishers, that are the right people that have got the right communities. So partnerships became a focus for me because that was sped the timeline up for me from a selfish monetizing perspective. I could still deliver, I could still do all those things, but I didn't have to be on doing 2 and 3 webinars a month and being on and then, not, and just doing that in that hustle mode. As much as I love it, it was not advantageous to my health because I can get burnt out in that enthusiasm so easy. And there's a difference between being on and actually the enthusiasm of serving in the moment. So I realized that was two very different things. So I have reduced the being on in that hustle mode and just focus on that. How can I serve more congruently for both the client and for me? So that's been my biggest lesson probably over the last 9 months for me.
Dang, I love that. Yeah, it's getting too excited it's I think it's gonna be the end of me. Why do I get excited so easily? Maybe that's another question I have for me. What
Yeah.
is your favorite boring aspect of content that has surprisingly brought in the most revenue to your clients?
Yeah. And I'm glad you've used the word boring because one of my phrases is the money is in the boring. Okay. And again, I would love to say that's my very clever line. It's not. It was a girlfriend of mine in the real estate business that said the money's in the boring, and she'd gone back into her business and changed a few things and stuck to the principle. So let me explain what the money in the boring means. When we have become bored by something, it's no longer exciting for us and we don't want to look at it again. And I'm going to use a book as an example for this, right? So we've just spent, 12 months, 10 years, whatever, birthing a book. We've, done 2 or 3 rewrites. It's absolutely exquisite. It's extraordinary. We've birthed it. It's exactly what we want. We've delivered this book. It's exactly what the audience wants. The audience finds it super exciting. They're, consuming it and they're all in it. But we're like, yeah, don't even. When I get the authors, they like, don't you make me read that book again? Don't you not make me read that book again? And that can be the same for any. That can be the same experience for somebody that delivers the same keynote presentation or the same training over and over again. If there is trainers listening to us, you've been in the room, because I've been in the room where you're in full delivery mode, and then you go, "Did I just have I said step 3 already? Did I just say step 3, or I'm only up to point 2?" Because you're so in flow and you're doing your thing, you can't remember. Have I said that bit already or not? Because it's so repetitive. Now, yes, we have become bored with it, but our audience has not had the same experience of it, of the production of it and the producing of it, as we have. So when we're generally bored by it, it's absolutely, still the most exciting thing our audience has seen. And 2, the biggest monetizing opportunity we've created with clients is when they've had that thing that they're bored with, and they have delivered it and repurposed it to their audience, and their audience is still consuming it and is still excited, but it's not as exciting, is that content packaged and given or joint ventured with a potential partner whose audience has not seen it, is where the greatest monetizing opportunity is. It's a great way, your existing content that you're currently bored with and your audience has seen before, and you feel like it's still highly, highly valuable, but it's a fantastic way to open up new markets and create joint ventures with other people that are in your network that serve a similar audience, or the same audience, but an audience that's at a newer stage. So the money is in the boring, and there's new market opportunities within that content and joint venture scenarios as well, for sure.
Yeah. I always wonder if in this case, like, can you share an unexpected tip for making content more digestible for audiences? Because everybody has short attention span. Everybody's you can't make it too intricate. Everything has to be simplified and dumbed down. So, what is the tip to doing that?
Yep, absolutely. So two tips. Let's go the context or the writing above the image. So images help to stop the scroll. There's no doubt about that, because a well-created tile or graphic or image will stop the scroll because it positions the viewer and all those sorts of things. And I'll come back to the tile in a minute. But if we look at the copy that goes above it, having a great, intriguing title or heading or hook, as we call it in marketing. So many people don't do that. And there's a big difference between putting a title at the top of the page that helps people see. They see that first. So they'll see the hook or the title and go, that looks a bit interesting. Then they'll look at the image, and then they'll go back to the expand more button if we're using LinkedIn or whatever to have a look at it. So hooks make a huge difference. Call to actions are where the conversations start. So a good call to action, that's not necessarily buy my stuff. That's the, hey, how did that resonate with you? The conversation starters, ask another question, ask for reflection. What did it mean to them? Those sorts of call to actions. The human ones, not the marketing and buy my stuff ones, firstly. And then everyone, as you said, has got a shorter attention span. So we've gone hook, we've gone look at the image, and then make the image, not too much writing on it. Make the image relevant to your audience, And there's a big difference between a 20-something image and a 50 age bracket and a 50-something image. If your audience is a 50-something image, then don't put the 20-something images there, because that creates a mismatch, and people will feel that and move on. So, really make sure your imagery is aligned to who you're speaking to, and the emotion that you're expressing is in that image, because any hinky feeling makes people just flick off, but, move on quickly. So just make it as resonant and relevant to the audience as you can.
They need to relate.
Yeah.
It's very important. I have a funny one. It just hit me. It came to me. If you could invite any, say, 3 people, dead or alive, anybody in the history of all time, to join your content creation roundtable, who would it be, and what would you want to discuss with them?
Ooh, So I would go Jerry Bruckheimer, purely because I love his movies, and he has a great way of, so I love assembling the team, and there's a diversity of team and the unity, and then they go off and save the world. So that I'd love to know his way of, and he demonstrates that so beautifully in the movies, and you can feel all of that all the way through. So I'd love to know how he brings that, the feeling of that team. So I would use the word unity. He would have different feels or essences of how they come together and they, march off. So he would have a specificity of knowledge as to how that occurs. I'm then going to say George Lucas, and I'm going to look at Star Wars here. And get goosebumps. And I'm going to go music here. So I know he doesn't do the music, but if you think of the music as when the movies open, they're very climatic. So I would have to say the use of music, which is something we use music in the content that we create. And every now and then there'll be a piece of music that I see with something in a client, and I'll go, wow, we've got really good music, but that's not what we're clever at. So I'd love to pick someone's brain, and I sort of thought of him first intuitively, of that powerful, very simplistic music, but the powerful music. Ooh, who else? I'm going to say Walt Disney now.
Really?
And this is from the magic element. So when you see, and I remember the Disney movies opening, and you've got the castle and you've got the sparkles, and it was all animated, and it was magical. So I would love to potentially pick his brain around the magical elements. So we've got the unity and the, overcoming and the resilience, and then we've got the powerful music, and then the magical elements. To me, they all contribute to the way in which a human feels and experiences their moment in what you're sharing with them. So I'd like to find out more about that.
Very fascinating. Wow. What do you think makes people excited? Like, what is the hook that gets them? Is it for them to feel like, I don't know, is it something funny, or would it be, what would make people more, what would make people click more times or more interested? What kind of content?
Yeah, I think that's I think it's a mix of everything. I think as content creators, and I've certainly been guilty of this, and so I'm an over-educator, so my content's always educating. And then we've got the over-promoters. I think as content creators, we get stuck in what we like. And I really believe that we need, and I'm laughing at myself internally as I say this as a Sally Nack to self at the same time, that, we get so stuck in our ways that we actually need to remember that there's all these other different ways of expressing ourselves and showing up for our audience, because ultimately all as human beings, we all like variety. So I might like humor today, and I might have a naughty personality. So someone's naughty conversations. In fact, when I was listening, I was listening to Bill Davis, I think it was earlier, the comedian. He was so one of your episodes. He was so naughty, and his conversation was right up my alley, right? But tomorrow your audience might be feeling something different. So something else is going to resonate with me. And I think for us, we need to show up as human beings, notably that we've got different emotions ourselves on different days. So we do need to show up differently in that manner. One of the things that's hardest for a lot of content creators, especially if they're educators and wisdom sharers, to create and choreograph is that personalized content. The stuff that they're doing personally. I'm terrible at doing that, remembering to do that. I have to really think about catching it. But I remember a few years ago, I started to bring my inner ferret out. So there's a bit of a backstory that I used to race horses and have show horses. I sold all those and I started racing ferrets. So a bit weird. We won't go into all of that. We can explore that later. But so I've had a love of ferrets because they're curious, they're naughty, they're cheeky, they've got, they're animated and all those sorts of things. So I created a 5-day challenge around, the marketing 101 as it reflected on the principles of ferret racing. and it was cute and it was gorgeous and I loved it, but it was too weird to bring out, right? Too weird. No, I can't do that. No, no, everyone will freak out if I do that. So I sort of just started to let it go out in dribs and drabs, and I still do that. But when I did that, my audience just went, "Oh my God, that is so you. Oh my God, we just love it." So I would say celebrate your weirdness. You know, bring it out every now and then to add a little bit more excitement and all those sorts of things. You don't need to have you bring your weirdness out all the time because then people don't realize, you know, it's not fun and exciting and new. But do be prepared to bring your weirdness out and create different content, and just sort of reminded yourself, don't always create the same sort of content flavor. You know, from a cooking perspective, we all like different types of cooking. Your audience all likes different type of content.
That's what I keep telling people. I have so many people that are always like, "What is your account about? You're so random. It's too much. It's too different. You don't have a niche. You gotta focus." I am not an insect. I don't need to do only one thing. I don't eat only one thing. I am more than one thing. So this
Correct.
is, I mean, yeah, it's wild how people just have to stay in this box. I can only share relationship content, and that is my. No, you don't have to only do that. Who tells you to do only one thing?
Yeah.
I don't understand where they're getting all these rules from.
Yeah. I agree. I think that there is aspects to niching when it relates to what your inner genius is. If that is the thing that you're selling,
Yeah, trying to
inch wide,
sell.
mile
Yeah.
deep type stuff. But as a human being, if we're sharing ourselves with our communities, then there is more than just that one thing to share with our communities. And that's what makes us human. And that's what makes our content human, because we are all of those expressive selves. If you look at a diamond, it's multifaceted. We are a diamond. We aren't just a line on a page.
Wow, I love it. I'm so happy I found somebody that can relate. That can, yes,
Yeah.
somebody that can understand what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
wild. What are some key strategies you recommend for content creators to efficiently create once, use often? Like, how does this principle help in the long-term sustainability of content?
Content. Yeah. If you look at it from the perspective of educating and delivering and sort of niching, but giving yourself variety. So how I would map that out is we've all got that inner genius piece and we're all creating contents. The long form contents are obviously a book, keynote presentations, podcasts, great conversations, training manuals, long form articles. They're all big pieces of content that we put a lot of time and effort into, right? It might be just a great conversation, but that great conversation has got lots of gold nuggets in it. So knowing that something that you create once has so many multiple opportunities within it. So for example, an article will often have dot points or bullet points in it or sections within it. Whenever you're creating something, one of the tips that we teach and talk about is look for bullet points, numbers, and bolded writing. Straight away, we know that that's got some level of importance. Well, that's potentially a bite-sized piece of content right there, or it might be an expanded video. So that your thinking on that page has got elements of that multidimensional diamond to it. It's not one line again. So just the mindset of knowing that an existing piece of content it will have 3 sections to it, a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, knowing that that is actually 3 potential story reels or short posts to promote the longer post and all those sorts of things. So that, you know, create it once, use it often, knowing and being aware that you can turn it into lots of other things is the first mindset shift, is knowing that you can actually do that. And then when you've highlighted and understand that it's got, you know, multiple sections in it. So on average, we'd probably create, I reckon, 20 to 25 content pieces out of an article, for example, and out of a blog we could probably do 30. You know, just knowing some of those benchmarks helps people as well. But if you've extracted and seen those elements on the transcription, for example, You could then maybe expand on that in a video, or you could expand and create a podcast series around some of the questions that might be the answers to that. So there's so much opportunity to expand from that one piece. And when you've got that one piece, to break it down into smaller pieces. But people just don't strategically think like that, because generally it's easier in our minds. Oh, I'm just going to create something new. I'm just going to create something new. But you could save yourself so much time and potential burnout and frustration if you go, right, I'll just create 12 really good articles or videos for the year and then turn them into bite-sized pieces that fill the gaps over the next 12 months. You really can simplify your content that much. And, we've got some books where we're on the 4th year of creating content from one book.
Wow.
Because we've just changed the skew in which we look at it. So I think we've been sold the habit, and we've all brought into it, create new content. But there's so much opportunity to create and reutilize what we've got.
Yeah, a lot of people have that problem, figuring out how to create and do the whole bite size, all the little, how can I break this down? How can I what would be the important part? Like, for example, even in a podcast, right? Like you have to watch it, obviously, then you have to figure out like what would be, what kind of like, which 90 seconds would be viral, like could have the potential.
Give you a huge tip there, because you've just said something that everybody does.
Yes.
And this is the biggest time suck ever, right? And you said, if it's a podcast or a video, you said, I need to watch it. You need to download the transcription and look at the written word. And if you get really creative, once you've downloaded, so let's use a YouTube video. YouTube's got a transcription. Copy and paste the transcription. Pop that into ChatGPT. Say, ChatGPT, can you please clean up the transcription for me? Can you please clean this up so it's in a document form? Thanks, ChatGPT. Busily does that for you. And then you can say to ChatGPT, can you please bold any really great, and it depends on what you want. I usually say teachable moments, tips, or one-liners. Can you please now bold that? And it'll go through and bold it. When you've got that document that's that you can, and reading it, old school ways, I go through and actually read and highlight. That's why I'm doing that movement. I highlight with my highlighter pen or my pencil, and I read. It's actually faster to read than it is to watch, because you don't catch things when you're watching and listening. Most human beings are, or I think it's about 70% of humans are visual. So reading and seeing the words in a transcription is the easiest and fastest way. If you then got that printed transcription and you've got your highlighter like I do it, or you've got ChatGPT to bold it, you just then email that across to your team and say, here's the snippets done. That literally takes about 15 minutes, whereas when you stop, start on the video and all the rest of it, it takes you an hour. And it's a pain in the ass.
It's so true. I love what you just said. Yes.
Transcriptions.
So true. Also, because you might, like, when you watch the video, you realize the audio, the sound here is this, the lighting here is that. Then I don't like my face expression. So it's like, oh my gosh, all these details that distract you from your mission. Like, let the editors take care of that part where you tell them, make me look pretty. And if I don't look pretty, just slap the other person on there. But you're so right.
Transcriptions. That's why books, and I only know the value of transcriptions because I started with books, which was the written word, and we developed a process around that and the speed and efficiency. And the only way to get that speed and efficiency and see intuitively. So if we talk about see beyond the words. When you're looking at a book or you're looking at a transcription, if you have that one page in front of you and if I use the word leadership again, leadership is the word that you're looking for, or communication or whatever, even without using search functions on Word documents. if you know that you're looking for leadership and you've got that word, and you sort of look through those squinty eyes that we used to look at the stereogram images to be able to have the image drop out. If you look through, we call it magic eyes now. We used to call it weird eyes, but let's call it magic eyes. If you look through your transcription with magic eyes, those words will actually jump off the page for you. And if that word's there, there's usually words around it that are your inner genius, because it's your inner genius word. So and again, you're not reading the whole thing. You're just scanning the document, using your magic eyes to find those key elements. Yeah. Transcriptions, magic eyes, super fast, and just working with your intuition and going with the flow to find what you're looking for.
I love it.
Yeah.
For the podcast, I recommend, well, they're not paying me for this, but I use Riverside for this specific purpose because you can actually download the transcript.
Yep.
And then they also do little reels for you, and based on whatever they consider, the AI picks as important moments and whatnot. But are there any tools that you would recommend for content creators?
I'm without doubt Canva, obviously, that goes without saying.
Good old Canva.
Yeah, good old Canva.
Are they Australian?
Yeah, they are. Yeah. So we've got a number of clients that are using Riverside at the moment. We use CapCut and Script for different elements. One of the tools we're not currently using at the moment, but I really, really loved, which is a tool called Imaginaro. And they actually work with Disney. It's a search function tool, does all the things that everybody else does, does your short snippets, does your audios, does imagery, does your transcriptions. I loved them originally, utilize them when we've got really big projects on and we're doing a lot of cutting up of content. So we can upload an entire YouTube channel to that, for example, and ask it to search for a particular word, and then it will give us all of the suggested cuts and the transcriptions and everything else. So I loved that tool. That's a really great tool if you're more of an agency and you do it, or you're doing a high volume thing, because it turns it into all of the right shapes and sizes, but it's the search function within that tool that is different to the CapCuts and the scripts, etc. So there's that one that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah,
and I just think there's so many things you can actually do with Canva these days. Canva's by far our go-to. We use Canva because our clients use Canva, and all of what we create for our client, we transfer over to our clients' Canva accounts. So I don't believe in holding clients hostage, and the systems, etc., that we create and build out in their Canva accounts, so they can literally continue on, or their team can continue on from where we started as it relates to repurposing, and then they just sort of come back to us for the strategy side of it and the campaign structure and stuff. So I don't like to use too many tools. I think you need to be expert in a select number of tools, and bright shiny things are as prolific in new tools coming out, especially now with the advent of AI. We're all going down chasing things, so I think there's a bright shiny object problem with tools as well. And I really think we need to just be clever with the tech tools that we know how to use really, really well, and just continue to use them really, really well.
And one last question. You mentioned something about be easy to consume, inevitable to buy. What does it mean to make your product or service inevitable to buy? Can you share an example of how this has been successfully implemented?
Yeah. So if we come back to that, if people are coming to your content regularly and consuming you even on their worst day, then that is part of that process. Where I think people become unstuck in this content creation process, potentially a little bit more when they're at the beginning stages, is there's a certain fear of, can't give everything away. They've got the fear of giving everything, particularly if you've got a signature program, right? And it's your first signature program, and you go, oh no, I can't repurpose that because I want somebody to buy that. That's often a misconception. So part of that, being inevitable to buy, easy to consume and inevitable to buy, means that you need to give your best stuff away. And that freaks people out.
Yeah.
But by giving your best stuff away, the opportunity that you create for yourself is that you unpack your own thinking and you unpack your genius more, and you actually end up with a whole lot more. So I think there's a bit of a dance there of, having something that you're taking to market and then unpacking it further and not having the fear of giving your best stuff away. To bust that myth as it relates to giving your best stuff away, you might be sharing your insights from your signature program or the thing that you do, but people need to see it. I'm sure it used to be 7 and I'm hearing 11 times before it actually sinks in. So you've got the opportunity for it to be repetitive. If you're sharing your best stuff and somebody's reading it, it might be a few months before they take action with it. But if you're giving your best stuff away, people know that it's valuable. It's not just AI. They know it's valuable. They feel that it's the essence of you. They're dropping in to still see you and be in your relationship orbit with you on their worst day, because you're giving them some forward movement. You're giving them some form of insight that's helping them in some way, shape or form. It may be, a ferret moment and they just think that's really weird and funny, but it brightens their day because they just think you're weird for that day. But what you've done is you've been easy to consume on that day, so they'll come back tomorrow and they'll come back again. So that ability to get people to come back and consume your content is leading them down a connecting journey with you. They're deepening their relationship with you. They feel more connected. You feel familiar to them. And then eventually when they either realize that you can help them solve their problem, or they understand the problem that they have, because they now understand they have a problem, you're their go-to person. So with that ebb and flow and that dance of them consuming your content, you are becoming inevitable to buy because you are becoming their obvious choice to help them solve whatever it is that they're wanting to solve, or be a part of whatever they're wanting to be a part of, or whatever they're wanting to learn. So that ability to unpack your inner genius, to have great content all the time, going out all the time, by utilizing create it once, use it often, and then having that consistency piece. And if we go back to when we've talked about consistency, is it 7 days? Is it 2 days? Is it 3 days? Your consistency rhythm, not my consistency rhythm. Your consistency rhythm. And this is a Sally nag to myself. Your consistency rhythm around your audience and the lifestyle that you want. Right? So you've got that consistency rhythm that suits you, that maybe only a couple of times a week, for example. But all those things add up to you being a great human that shows up in their world for them. That makes you inevitable to buy person, because you are their sought after go-to expert.
Sally, you dropped the mic. Wow. You're like, boom, right there. That was amazing.
Thank you.
I am so impressed. And I'll definitely need to, once I do have a team right now, but I am, once I'm getting a bigger, more things, more projects, everybody's burned out, I'm going to have to reach out to you.
Absolutely. Always
And
here to
if
help.
you're not too busy, I'll have to, hire your experts, because we're busy over here too. And is there any question that you wish I had asked and forgot or omitted?
Nope. I think we've covered. Yeah, I will just. She's just come in because it's. I'm very well trained, and she's gone. That sounds like they're winding up. I've just had the tap on the leg. That means we haven't been out for a walk. So I'm
Yes.
probably, the only question I can think of is, how well trained am I by my dog? Very.
Yes, but she was so patient. It's been over an hour, so I am so thankful. And yes, I am. I wish you all the best. And where can they find you? My team, my followers.
Community. Best place to find me, where I'm most active, is actually over on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram too, but most active as it relates to conversations, etc., over on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook as well, and you can find me through my website. So LinkedIn is Sally A. Curtis. Just dropping the A in there, because otherwise there's 25 of us Sally Curtises. So Sally A. Curtis on LinkedIn, and my website, to make it easier, is sallyaCurtis.biz, and you can find a little bit more out on there as well. Always up to have a great conversation. I love to hear what people's quests, adventures and legacy is that they're wanting to leave, and working out how and if I can assist them with that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sally.
Very
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
And we will keep in touch.
We shall. Thank you so much.